Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night. How is everybody doing? This is Marcia Weeks, and you're watching the Marcia Weeks Show. We're coming to you live, and in color, live and in color from Barbados. Beautiful Barbados, right here in the Caribbean. We're going to ask you to get ready, get your popcorn, get your coffee. What you're going to get this evening, because listen, it's going to be an amazing evening. I am excited. I have been researching, I have been writing, I have just been waiting on this moment, because we are talking to this evening about the emancipated mind. And as you know, tomorrow is August 1st, and we have quite a number of our Caribbean countries that are celebrating in Emancipation Day, right? Quite a number of our countries, Caribbean countries, celebrating Emancipation Day. Of course, you know, slavery was abolished from most of the Caribbean islands in 1834. We had Haiti, who they had their independence a bit before everybody else, and Cuba was the last. All right, but quite a number of Caribbean islands. When I was researching, I didn't realize that there were so many. We're talking about Bahamas. We're talking about Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I mean, it's quite a few. The British Virgin Islands, Barbados, of course, Guyana. Quite a number of countries are celebrating Emancipation Day either tomorrow, August 1st, or sometime in the month of August. And when you begin to look at our history, viewers, we see how much we have in common. Yes, we're divided by water and by borders, etc., but we have so much in common. We are bonded together by ancestry, by suffering, by history, so much that holds us together. And that's why we're coming together with those from the continent, because that's where we came from, right? From the continent. So we're coming together with those from the continent, and we're going to be looking at, colonialism as well, because while we left Africa, we came over on this side and we were enslaved. There was another enslavement going on, colonialism, and all of that. Those things, they work together to enslave the mind. And so tonight we're talking about the emancipated mind. What does that look like? What would it look like as a Caribbean national that I'm emancipated? What would it look like for me? How does it feel as an African to be emancipated? What does that mean? What does that feel like? Emancipation Day, do we really pay attention to that day? What does it really mean? And so those are some of the things that we are going to be looking at this evening. But before I go any further, of course, I've got to greet everybody. And we're going to play our national anthem for sure. Hi, Lucinda. Good evening, Lucinda Vernon Garnes. Good evening, Queen B. Good evening. Good evening. We are not afraid. That we are not. Queen B says we're not afraid. That's coming from an emancipated mind. Yeah. Mystic Angel, good evening. It's me. Good evening, Junie Rock. How are you doing, Junie Rock? Bajan Boy, good evening. What's up? What's up? Judy Jills, good evening. Guys, we're going to ask you to kindly share. Kindly share. This is an important show. And I have some great news for you, Jonah, Marcia. If you share, I'm going to tell you some great news. Monica Ince, Llewellyn Eiffel, good evening. Ryan Rock, good evening. Peter King, it's always good to see you, Peter King. Thanks for the support and the love. Sir Alfred Benjamin, all the way from Brooklyn. Sir Alfred, have you shared as yet? Did you share? Mildred Ben, good evening. FX Trading, how are you doing? Happy Emancipation Day. I almost said independence. Happy pre-Emancipation Day, the day of freedom. Are we really free? Wow, we're going to look at all of those things tonight. Peter King again, Owen Hines, Juliet Gittins, Romeo Hinkson, Flo Joe Maloney, how are you? Tony Paris, hi. Manasseh King, how are you doing? Manasseh, oh my goodness. Tony Paris, you're saying the right thing. Like and share, folks. Like and share. Everybody, we've got to like and share. Tonight is a night of education. It's a night of illumination. It's a night of inspiration. Tonight, our minds are going to be invigorated and be realigned, and our consciousness is going to come in alignment. Woo! It's a lot tonight, guys. You've got to share. I am excited. Owen Hines, they blocked you from Facebook. Why would they block you from Facebook? I know you didn't do anything bad. Well, I'm glad you're out of Facebook jail. You have been emancipated, Owen. Hi, Tyrone. Hey. Oh, my goodness. We are all here. I can't greet everybody because we have so much to do tonight. But I'm seeing my wonderful people who are on. And without you, there is no Marcia Week show. And so, Bim, the beautiful gal bits, I can't resist. I said I don't have time, and I'm still putting up your names because without you, there is no show. We love you guys, and we do it because of you. We're excited to have you all logged on, and we're asking you kindly to share. Tonight is a great night. Now, we are going to go into our national anthem. Into the national anthem, and after the national anthem, I'm just going to play also a little excerpt from Mr. Thorne, our Rob Thorne, who is our leader of the opposition, our lone member, and he has something to say to us. And I tell you, we have a special show that's going to come up. I can't wait to tell you. I have to tell you now, there's a special show tomorrow night. A special show all dedicated to the Bail Act. All right, so we're going to talk about the Bail Act that is being proposed, and that all the lawyers are saying there's something wrong here, government. You've got to stop. Hey, our constitutional rights. So don't forget those. So we've got to come on here tomorrow, and we've got to talk about that on Emancipation Day. But for right now, let's go right into our anthem.
When the ending time of me, when this dwelling was young, a brave forefather saw the sea, from which our pride is grown. In pride that makes no one come boast of what it has been soon, that rise our from coast to coast.
daughters, loyal sons and daughters. Yes, loyal sons and daughters. We hereby we make it known that we're standing up for our country tonight. And this is why we do what we do. This is why we do what we do. And this is why we have our leader of the opposition and the senators. Both Senator Tricia Watson, Senator Monique Tate, and Senator Ryan, they are fighting on our behalf. Ryan Walters are fighting on our behalf because of this, not because of their own, agendas, but because of this, to preserve what our ancestors have bled and died for. And that's what we are preserving. Yes. And for those of you who just joined, we're going to ask you again to kindly share, please share. This week our leader of the opposition and the senators had to debate a bill both in the upper house and the lower house, and this is the Bail Act. Okay, this is a proposed Bail Act, which they're now saying it's now passed. And I mean, this is a piece of legislation that is so important, and it was done in a day, a day, or in 2 days, really, in 2 days, and it's passed. This is Barbados. Welcome to Barbados. This is what happens in Barbados, it seems. And so there are many questions. Of course, you and I know we need a Bail Act. We definitely need a stronger Bail Act. We know that is so. But I mean, are we going to do that at the expense of our constitutional rights? Is it that because the government knows that we need it, and the crime situation is increasing so much in Barbados, that they're going to go ahead and just quickly pass this Bail Act so quickly in 2 days, debated one day in one house, next day in the next house, and the bill is passed because we do not have enough. They know we don't have enough opposition there, but you know what, we are on the outside. I keep saying to us that we are the opposition, all 280,000 of us. Do we need a Bail Act? We're saying to our leaders, yes, we need a Bail Act, but what are we? Is it going to be at the expense of our constitutional rights? What does this mean in terms of the cybercrime bill? Does it mean that because the cybercrime bill, it's not criminal. These are criminal offenses. So does it mean that somebody who who is going to be tried as a result, or they believe have broken the cybercrime laws, there'll be no bail for them? It's all of these things that we have to look at and to be careful of. Is the government trying to sneak one in? Is this part of the dictatorship plan that they have for this country? Is it part of the agenda? Is this what this is? Is this what they are trying to push in on us? What is going on? And so we're going to examine all of that tomorrow night. It's too important. I'm not normally on a Thursday night. Kimar is not on tomorrow. So we are going to, it's Emancipation Day. And, we should all be resting. But how are we going to rest? How are we going to rest tomorrow, knowing that the government seem to be using this as an opportunity? An opportunity. Is the government using this as an opportunity to sneak one in on us? That is the question here, guys. So tomorrow we're gonna be up. We're gonna be it's Emancipation Day. Let's talk about that on Emancipation Day. Because if we continue, we'll all be locked up without any reference to our constitutional rights. So we need to make sure that we're logged on tomorrow at 7:00. That's correct. The Bar Association has requested that it goes to a select committee. But the way these people are operating in here is that it goes to the select committee, and they do it anyway. They do it anyway. Yeah. So we want to thank all of those senators who stood up on behalf of the people of Barbados. You know, there's some people who believe that you're there just to make trouble. It is standing up for this, for Barbados. For Barbados. Do we need that's the thing with them. Do we need to monitor the cybercrime, the cyberspace? Yes, we do. We do. But does that mean that you're going to take our constitutional rights in order to do that? Or human rights away from us in order to do that? Do we need a bail act? Yes, we do. Do we need a stronger bail act? Yes, we do. But come on, man. Why does it always have to seem like it's an overreach? Why? Prime Minister Mia Mottley, why? And I thank God for the lawyers who are standing up, Monique Tate and Senator Trisha Watson, and of course the first person who was able to sound the alarm is our leader of the opposition, King's Counsel, Ralph Thorne, who will be on the show tomorrow, along with as many lawyers as I can get, because we're going to stand up on behalf of Barbados. Yes, that's what we're going to do. Dave is here, and good night, Dave. And Dave is going to play for us that clip. If we can get that clip before we go into our show, Emancipated Minds at 7:30. So I'm going to ask Dave to go ahead and to play that clip.
There's a sense in which this so-called new legislation today does not do much more than the Bail Act of 2001. So don't come in here today pretending that this is some revolutionary piece of legislation. So that this legislation today is telling this chamber and the people of this country that the learned Attorney General is intended to amend the constitution of this country. Where is it? Where is the new constitution? But if this learned Attorney General had brought the new constitution, the question of bail, he could extricate himself and this country from this dilemma related to bail. Please find it possible, government, to pass a law that creates a gun court so that this abundance of gun offenses will find themselves being tried in a court dedicated to that. I ask the government to be equally magnanimous and to bring to this country new legislation that will provide for degrees of murder so that the issue of bail is resolved. I know that we live in a country in which we should not have to choose our route home because of fear of crime, because of fear of a stray bullet. That is happening in your country, Your Honor. Must we not have the courage? Must we become consorts with a criminal element because we want the extra vote? Or must we stand on principle and defend the rights, interests, and entitlements of an innocent majority in this country? And I warn my colleagues on both sides of the political divide to do nothing that appears to give comfort to those involved in crime, whether actual or by proven reputation. May I kindly say that this parliament today has breached its responsibility to this country, and that this parliament has not been firm. This parliament has not been resolute. This parliament has given birth to a failure, a legislative failure today, that has not adequately and properly addressed the question of bail. This government, when it suits it, is conveniently cowardly. And when it is politically expedient, it will have the courage to do wrong against the people of this country. And if you breach the law, and if you breach the criminal law, and if you deprive another man, woman, or child of their right to life, you must become subject to the law. You must become subject to the Constitution. And as parliamentarians, as lawyers, we must have the courage to say that. We could also take him to a department with which he may be more familiar, but he may be losing his grip on that one, the Barbados Police Service. I beg this government, I ask this government, I beseech this government, I plead with this government to withdraw its tentacles, to withdraw its voices. They may even believe that their voices are legitimate, insofar as they reflect the internal workings of the police service. But let the police service do its work. But the workings of the police service belong exclusively to the police service, and Section 8 of the Police Act is always a reminder that in the superintendence of the Barbados Police Service, the Commissioner of Police is answerable to the head of state, not the head of government. You know, tyranny, as the old people used to say of trouble, it doesn't set up like the rain. You don't look up and suddenly see dark clouds. This has not gone far enough, and I summarize and close by asking the learned Attorney General to get the new Republican Constitution to this Parliament, and to do it with haste. And to get that Republican Constitution to this Parliament with haste, and to get it here with a content that does not disturb the fundamental right to freedom that protects bail. Except that I ask this learned Attorney General to bring with that new Republican Constitution a new Offences Against the Person Act, which creates degrees of homicide, so that the question of bail is determined when a man is charged. And solve this problem. Solve this national problem. Resolve this national scourge. And after this learned Attorney General has done that, to bring a gun court to the administration of justice, and to bring anti-gang legislation to this country, and to rein in rampant criminality that visits us in our daily lives.
Now, I tell you something, my fellow Barbadians. I listened to this yesterday, and you know me, I'm a crybaby, and the tears started to come to my eyes, because I said, this man is here for such a time as this. And that's why I support Mr. Thorne. Has nothing to do with a party. I'm not a member of his party, but you know what? I am part of the opposition. And if we don't support Mr. Thorne, if we don't support the Senator Watson, if we don't support Senator Ryan, what are we doing? If Monique Tate gets up and speaks and we don't stand behind Monique Tate, what's the point? If Dr. Sonia Brown gets up and she speaks on our behalf and we don't stand behind her, what are we doing? How can we not support this? Who is there to fight for us? Can we go into Parliament? We're not in Parliament. And as somebody said, Tyrone says, we have to support Honorable Rob Thorne. He has a great soul and a spirit. We have to be strong and brave and get rid of this corruption in Barbados. Yes? We have to put aside all of the party stuff and saying, you know, because some people, you know, you don't like what is going on. But you know what I found out, guys? I have found out that there are some people who are really not interested in the development of Barbados. That's what I think. There are some people that even come on this live, and you are just here to criticize. You are not about Barbados. And so anybody who comes up, yes, you're not happy with what the government is doing, but you don't want any solutions either. You're not serious about any solutions, my Barbadian people. There's some of you like that, not everybody. And I'm saying to us, it's not good enough. We're not going to be able to accomplish anything like that. When we hear them in the Senate and we hear them in Parliament, when we hear them stand up, stand with them. Stand with them. When we call a march, come out to the march. We're going to be talking about the emancipated mind tonight. It's so important that we become emancipated. Because when our minds are free from the slavery and the colonialism, then we're going to trust each other a bit more. could you hear somebody speak their heart like that? Today, yesterday, Trisha Watson today, Monique Tate, right? Senator Ryan Walters, when you hear them, and all the other senators, I think there's Drake's as well, all those, we've got to stand with them. If not us, who? Who is going to do it? This is our Barbados. We have to make that decision that we're going to fight together. You hear what I tell you? Stop talking about, oh, the DLP is not ready. The DLP is not ready. You have to understand that there are some people in this country that trying to have a one-party state. Do you understand that a lot of people are trying to destroy the DLP and any other party? They don't want the UPP to survive. They don't want the DLP to survive. They only want the BLP. And that can't happen in Barbados. And Bajans need to put their foot down and say, never will there be a one-party state in this country. Before that, I go and vote for a tree or a dog, I tell you. Tell yourselves that. Never will that happen in this country. And that's what I am about. And I hope you're about that too. We don't line up behind colors. We line up behind principles and policies and what's right for Barbados. That's what we line up behind. And let us stand and support the opposition. Very important that we do that. Yes? All right. But we're going to continue this discussion tomorrow night. We have a special show. Okay? We have a special show tomorrow at 7 o'clock. We don't normally have that show tomorrow, a show on a Thursday. But this is too important, you know? And you know what? The last thing I'm going to say about this, these little people here, I don't even want to call them any names. Let me not call any names. Because I don't, these people, do you realize that they always try to pass a bill, something major when there's a holiday? You realize that? Holiday, and then everybody gone into cadooment with their clothes off and gyrating in the street and liquor in your head, and you completely forget about this. Do you realize what they're doing? The same thing happened last year with the pension bill. Do you remember? Barbadians, we can't forget. They did this to us. Last year, they did this to us. Enough is enough with this nonsense. And they're always sneaking it in when it's a holiday. Brass taxes off the air. They sit down and they plan it, I tell you. They sit down and they plan it. They plan it. And I tell you something, if I need to sit in this chair every single day, even Kadum at night, we're going to stay here. We are tired of this nonsense. Yeah? But it's 7:29 and we are going to get started. I only see one of my guests here, but we're gonna get started anyway. But guys, please share. We need to have more people on now. We need to have more people on, folks. This is important. This is so important. This is where, while we're not dealing directly with the issues that's happening in Barbados, you see what we're doing, we're preparing the people. This is the education that is necessary for us to take on the issues. If we are still working with a colonized mind and an enslaved mind, we're not going to be able to take on the issues of the present day. Do you understand? And that is why a show like this is so important. I say, get your book or whatever you write in, sit around, bring your family. There's no work tomorrow. There's no school. Bring them around the TV or the laptop or the phone, and bring the family together and let's talk tonight. Let's build up ourselves. Let's strengthen ourselves for what is ahead. Yes? Let's do that. And I'm just going to give you a couple minutes to share some more, folks. Please share. Please share some more. Share some more. Tonight is an important night. Yes. So I'm just going to give you a little more time to share. And then, and while our guests start to come in, yes, I'm going to ask you to share, 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 share. Share. I'm doing some stuff as well. If you haven't done that yet, you need to do it. This it's too important for us as Caribbean people. Too important that we do that. Rob Thorne will be with us tomorrow night. Mr. Thorne is going to be with us tomorrow night. We're coming on. We're going to support him. We are going to support him. Yeah. And not just him, but the Bar Association. They didn't speak up all the time for the cybercrime bill. Very early, they only came out towards the end. And we complain. Now they're standing up on our behalf, and we're going to support them. Okay, so let's get that. Let's get that done. The emancipated mind. The concept of emancipation extends far beyond mere political or social liberation. It encompasses a profound journey of intellectual and cultural freedom. Tonight's show, The Emancipated Mind, delves into the multifaceted process by which African and the diasporic communities reclaim and redefine their narratives, identities, and intellectual legacies. As the African continent and its global diaspora navigate a complex landscape shaped by historical legacies and contemporary challenges, the quest for mental and cultural emancipation remains a pivotal force. This show tonight explores how our people are forging new paths of understanding and expression, drawing from a rich heritage while addressing present day realities. This show seeks to illuminate the ways in which African and the diasporic thinkers and creators are challenging dominant paradigms and constructing emancipated frameworks of thought. It serves as a critical examination of the ongoing evolution of Africa and its diaspora. Tonight, we have with us so well, suppose so. These are the people who are supposed to be joining us. We don't have them, all of them, right now. But we have seven speakers that are supposed to join us tonight. Don Leacock from Barbados. We also have Dr. Nathan Barasa Wangusa from Kenya. We have Eugenia Charles from Haiti, who will join us at about 9 o'clock tonight because she has another program. There's Kimar Stewart from Barbados. We know Kimar. Shirura Empora Kagwagur from Uganda. All right. And we have Pigeon Odewengu from Kenya. And these persons are all going to be joining us tonight at one time or the other. But my first guest up is going to be Dr. Nathan Wangusi. Good night, Dr. Nathan Wangusi.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Thanks for having me on the show as usual. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to you again.
Yes, sir. We the last time you were on, you talked to us so much, about fear, and you talked about the lion. Remember? For
Yeah,
those of you who don't remember him, he's the one who spoke about the lion and talked about that school where the children rose up and decided that they were going to defend their playground. Yes, can you remind us of the name of the school?
The name of the school is Langata Road Primary School. It's a small public school located in the constituency of Langata in Nairobi.
Yes, yes. And we were so inspired by that. You spoke about how there were no real barriers to the what do you call it, where the animals are. It's not a zoo at all. It is the, what do you call it?
Oh, it's a national park.
The national park. The national park. There are no barriers, you know. The lion might just pass your house at night, and you know, and how they respect the lion. They don't fear the lion, they respect the lion. And we did the song Lion in Zion, which a lot of people, when I see people on the road, they still remember it, you know, they still remember that show. And on behalf of the people of Barbados, I really want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so very much.
Thank you, thank you. I'm also looking forward to coming back to Barbados this time to engage more with the good people of Barbados.
Yes, well, you know what? You are playing into exactly what the people are asking for. We had two young ladies on, and they fell in love with them. They loved you too, but they were the innocence of these young. They love these young ladies, and you know they want you all to come to Barbados to actually physically be present in Barbados, to come and to let us discuss some of these issues that we're dealing with here in the country, and as we're trying to mobilize ourselves and get our minds emancipated. You know, we need you guys, we need your help, we need your support. But you know, Dr. Wanguse, when we talk about the emancipated mind,
Yeah.
what are we really talking about?
So I think you need to go back to what the enslaved mind, which is sort of the contrary of what the emancipated mind is. So for a mind to get enslaved, a person to get enslaved, the first thing that needs to happen is they need to be taught to forget who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that can either be done progressively through coercion, force and violence, or it can be done by the use of sort of forced removal from someone's culture or someone's traditions. So
Mm-hmm.
the first step to enslaving person is trying to make them forget who they are.
Mm-hmm.
There's the concept of enslaving an individual, but there's also a larger sort of broader concept of enslaving a people.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about enslaving an individual, that you've what used to happen in the Caribbean and other parts of the world, where individuals would be caught against their free will, and first broken in, which was a very violent and uncouth process, and then after that, then whatever they isolate that person or they create in that person, the fears, the isolation, the disconnection from their culture, is then transmitted from generation to generation thereof, or from there on. So enslavement can happen to an individual, it can happen to a collective of individuals in one point in history, but it can also happen over generations, because the mindset and the fears and the isolation and the disconnection from one's culture and people is
Mm-hmm.
extended into from generation to generation. The reason I'm explaining it that way is to say emancipation, as it happened in the Caribbean and as we said in other parts of the world, did not mean, obviously, that the people's minds were also emancipated. So they might have been physically freed, but then the emancipation didn't also translate into a person, an individual and collective mindset that
Mm-hmm.
transmit from generation to generation of a people who are free. Um, and I think this is what the slaver understands well. They understand very well that if you enslave an individual, you enslave a family. If you enslave a family, you enslave a community. If you enslave a community, you enslave a generation. So that's sort of how I think about the enslaved mind. And
Mhm.
contrary, the emancipated mind is one that is born free. We have a famous movie that's called Born Free. That's where kind of that statement comes from. And an emancipated mind is one that thinks without limits, that
Mhm.
operates without conditions and fears, that teaches generation through generation of limitless and endless possibilities that a person or a community or a collective can achieve.
Yes. Wow. Quite interesting. You talk. There's something I wrote down here. You talk about the disconnection from one's culture
Mhm,
and from who they are,
mhm,
and so right away I'm thinking of all of us here in the Caribbean,
mhm,
where we who were taken away from our culture, from our identities, and so on. But what about Africa, the
mhm,
continent? No, you guys remained. You were there. So
mhm.
your ancestry never, you remained on the continent. Would you say that those in Africa need to be emancipated as well, mentally? Is there any kind of mental slavery happening with the people of those on the continent, even though they were not in slavery or enslaved here in this region?
Um, the answer to that question is quite a resounding yes. I think the African continent or Africans who live in the homeland suffer from a lot of the same sort of symptoms of mental enslavement that we see in
Hmm.
the Caribbean. And the reasons for that, as we said, are duplicitous. There's many reasons for that, but one of the main ones is we were also colonized, right? We were occupied, and we were told for for decades that our culture was different, our culture was inferior, our
Yes.
progressive, and that we needed to abandon who we were and
Hmm.
adopt European ways. Now, what that also did is that it also economically enslaved African countries. Uh,
Hmm.
Even after colonization ended in many countries, the commercial interests that the the colonial governments had established were retained through institutions like the IMF and other global institutions that are focused on resource extraction from the African continent. So not only was it mental enslavement, but it was also economic enslavement. So the issues that we ended up dealing with as a result mirror themselves in the Caribbean as they do in Africa. There's parts of our continent, even parts of our country, like Kenya, for example, where there's civil unrest and there's wars going on in the Congo, in Sudan, in South Sudan, in Somalia, in Chad, and there's a continuing struggle for not just identity but for resources that we
Yes.
mirrored in places like Haiti, to the extent that we can be co-opted as Kenyans to come and intervene in a situation like that. So the issues are the same. We are certainly kinsmen, similar. We are perceived the same way by
Hmm.
and I think that enslavement we as a people, as a black uh, and uh, and um, and um, and as Africans experienced in the Caribbean extended to the African continent, because the actors were the same, the behavior was the same, the approach was the same. It's just this time it was done under the auspices of creating colonial institutions or
Yes.
colonial.
Yeah, because as I was preparing tonight, I said, the African might say, "Well, we don't have an enslaved mind. We were never enslaved." And it's, sometimes, you do have some Africans says, well, you all were slaves. But then you look at Africa, and we are seeing similarities with
Mhm.
how, some of the issues that we're having.
Yeah.
And it's a result. You can see the results of an enslaved mind,
Yeah.
based on just what is happening, what we see happening, in Africa. I see, Shirura, from Uganda, is there, and I want him to give me a thumbs up, and so I know if he's ready, to come on to the program, while he's ready. And yeah, so I think he's ready to join us. Hi, Shirura, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Marcia. How you doing?
I am doing quite well. I'm doing well. It's good to see you. How is Uganda?
Uganda is beautiful. It's very beautiful. How is Barbados?
Barbados is beautiful, but we're having some
Mhm.
challenges. We do.
Right.
Well, I'm going to be honest. We are having some challenges, and a show like tonight, that show that we're like this kind of a show, tonight, the day before Emancipation Day. I think it's important that we have it so that our people are prepared, and
Right.
they have the tools, and the right mindset to take on some of the challenges, of the day. Well, we're so happy to have you with us again. I know Don Leacock is, there getting ready, as well, and he will let me know when it's time, to join. If he's ready to join, he's going to let me know when he's ready to join, as well. Is he telling me that he's ready? Thumbs up. That's a thumbs up. Okay. Let me welcome Don Leacock as well, from Barbados. Good night, Don.
Hi, good night, Marcia. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I am doing great. We are, it's so great to have, our brothers and sisters on from the continent. We have,
Definitely honored
Dr.
to be here.
Nathan Wangusi from Kenya, and we have, Shirora from Uganda,
Hmm.
and whom you've seen quite a number of times on the show, and yourself from, Barbados, and others are going to be coming on to the program tonight. And we kind of kicked off by defining, the emancipated mind, what that is, all about. And what is, and we actually did go into what is mental slavery, but I'm going to ask both of you that question, since we've already defined the emancipated mind. And let me go to Shirura from Uganda. Shirura, what, how would you define, the mental slavery, and how does that relate to Africa, to the continent?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Uh, when you're defining an enslaved mind, it's quite uh, it's quite a huge definition. But I think the biggest definition would be uh, self-hate. When a culture despises themselves, that is the beginning. That's the first. That's the biggest symptom. It's the one which sticks out. We are the only culture that has embraced the language of a people who sold us into servitude, and we justified. And of course, I agree with people who have arguments and say that these languages are uniting us. But look, if you sell me into chattel slavery, I would despise anything about you. Well, we can respect one another because the people that are existing today, the Europeans who exist today, did not really participate physically in slavery, but they still benefit from the same system and they are comfortable with that.
Yes.
But once I glorify your language, the other day here in my country, I went to a village church, and when I was in the church, I saw this picture of Jesus hanging, and a white guy was hanging up, and of course I couldn't blame the locals. I know It's how they've been taught. But when a people despise themselves and their cultures, then you understand that mentally these people are slaves. This is one of the symptoms that sticks out, but it's a big definition when you start defining mental slavery. And the other thing that you can also look at when you talk about mental slavery, and I'm very passionate about the languages we speak. A few months ago, the the country of Italy passed a law, and the law was saying if you speak Italiano and mix it with English or other languages, it's an offense and punishable by the law. They were trying to pass it. I don't know if they passed it. And if these white people were, because they are mostly the Anglo-Saxons and the Slavic Europeans, but they are all Europeans. But everyone speaks their language. And if you see the EU Parliament, everyone speaks their language
Mm-hmm.
and they are proud. And even at the UN, the only people, the only race, there's only that one race that has a name that don't belong to them, that
Mm-hmm.
is not their names, that speak languages that are not their languages. It's only one race. And it looks like me and you, Monsieur. So these are some of the symptoms of mental slavery. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Very interesting. I love how you talk about self-hate. And so you know, that for you is a important part of your definition of mental slavery, and the examples that you gave of the, you know, the white Jesus. I remember going to in Ghana, and everywhere I went down, there was just this on all the vehicles. Honestly, that I saw, I would say 98%, 99% of the vehicles that I saw was a white Jesus. I don't know why they put it on the vehicles, but it's all, you know, this picture, to the point it affected me so much. I had to close my eyes. It was affecting me mentally, honestly, because you know, for me, while I'm of the Christian faith, but I don't keep those kinds of pictures in my head, and I don't envision you know, the Messiah as a white man. So it was affecting me, you know. So I had to literally close my eyes. So I totally understand what Sharur is saying in terms of that kind of mental slavery, and how that can affect you and bring self hate. But you know, Don, let's bring that to a Caribbean context. As a Caribbean man, you've lived in was born in Barbados, right now,
Yeah.
and lived there for most of your life, and you know, you went to study overseas. But would you how would you define mental slavery as a Caribbean man? And tell us how do you relate that to us here in that definition, to us here in the Caribbean? Can you give us an example of that here in the
Yeah,
Caribbean?
sure. I agree completely with what the definition that was given right before me. I love that definition. It's going to be hard to top that one from there. That was very thorough. And I completely agree with the self hate part of it. A perfect example from your home country. I'm sure you know who Vibes Cartel is.
Yes.
I'm sure you're aware he was freed from jail today after
Oh,
13 years in jail.
I saw something just before I went on, but is he out yet? They're saying that he
Yes,
should be
he's
free.
in the
He's
streets of
in
Jamaica,
the streets.
in the streets.
Oh my goodness, we need to capture that and put it on there. We're talking about emancipation, because
Yeah,
tomorrow is Emancipation Day in Jamaica. That's quite interesting. I'm going to see if
yeah.
Dave
So
can capture some of that and put on the program for us. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
so for those of you that don't know who Vibes Cartel is, he's probably the most prolific, influential, both politically and on the streets figure, possibly since Bob Marley in the Caribbean. He All young men look up to him. For example, when we were going to school in secondary school, he sang a song about Clarks, you know, just the English footwear brand
Yes.
Clarks. They had like a 10,000 50% increase in sales. But the point I made by bringing up Vibes Cartel is that one of the only negative things about him, in my opinion, apart from the fact he makes great music and has motivated most of my generation, he suffered with a little bit of self-hate and identity crisis as well. Because about halfway through his career, when he was at like the peak of his musical journey, he started skin bleaching. He started to bleach his face, and he it really actually permeated onto the culture. People, when I was 14 years old, 15 years old, both boys and girls were coming into school with the blue soap that we use to bleach clothes. And they
Mm-hmm.
were washing their face with it before school, at lunchtime, after school, for the same exact reasons that he was mentioning before. Because of that internalized self hate, because of that reasoning within yourself that if you're a little bit lighter, you might be more accepted by society, and you might be able to, go through life and walk through life in a more successful way just because you're a little bit lighter. So even though I did bring him up as a positive thing that he was released from jail because he's a symbol of emancipation across the Caribbean, that was a negative effect too, because he did have thousands or even possibly hundreds of thousands of young people across the Caribbean thinking about bleaching their skin, thinking about how it would be beneficial to bleach their black skin. So I think that's the perfect example for us to talk about here tonight, and to piggyback off of what was said just before me.
Yeah, it's an excellent example there, Dr. Wangusi, because he is someone who is loved and revered among the young people,
Mhm.
and such an influencer. And then, he doesn't look the same way. That he's not the same person. He's trying to be white,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of that's a form of mental slavery. And as um, not Sharura, I'm sorry, says, I'm so sorry. Um, yeah, that's him there, and he was much darker. You see, right
Yes, he was
now,
a very dark skinned man, and now
very dark skinned.
he,
It was dark like the guy in the back behind him,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? It was
And
dark,
now he look. Mm-hmm.
and now look at him, but yet still he is is somebody that we look up to. Dr. Wangusi, I'm going to ask you this question. Can a person really free themselves from mental slavery? Because we look at him, he had a lot of wealth, he had so much. He accomplished so much in his musical career. Won lots of awards, traveled the world. But can a person really free themselves from mental slavery? I want to come to that, but let me just go to the comments while you think about that, Dr. Wangusi. Yes.
Oh, I was actually reading some of the comments, and I picked up one really interesting question:
Yes. Go ahead.
the role of religion in enslaving the African people, specifically Christianity and Islam. And I just want to go back to something I said in our previous discussion on this show, which is Barbadians need to remember that Africa is a very diverse place, not just ethnically, but also religiously, and it has always been as such. It is not true. It is absolutely not true that Christianity, Islam are Western religions, right? The
Mm-hmm.
first Christians were not Swedes, they were not English. In fact, the Ethiopian church, the Orthodox Ethiopian church, is significantly older than the Western Christian church as we know it, including the Catholic Church. So
Mm-hmm.
even our perceptions and understanding of our faith, including the Islamic religion, uh,
Mm-hmm.
were at some points in history, and in fact in the present time,
Mm-hmm.
part of a very dominant force that defined the way the world was the world understood religion. So in fact, in the Bible, there's talk of the Ethiopian church. There's also talk of East Africa. Uh,
Yes.
the parts of the Bible in the Old Testament that talk about and talk about Egypt. Where is Egypt? Egypt is an African country. People forget that completely, right? But what I is that this idea of Christianity and Islam have been completely whitewashed. I dare even say in this show that the pharaohs have been found. If you look at and if you look at the old texts and hieroglyphics that have been unearthed by archaeologists, these were brown people like you and I, but they've been whitewashed.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to caution and remind our audience that Christianity never was a white religion. The fact that during the period of enslavement of the African people and during this period of enslavement of the African continent, this idea of whitewashing of everything that was good and blackfacing everything that was bad became predominant. It was also a scientific theory of, called eugenics, where they created this idea that black people. But the truth is, we are the original Homo sapiens, right? We biologically or in our genetic makeup are the cradle of mankind. So we just need to make sure that we have sort of the right knowledge about religion and our identity. In addition to all this, in addition to what we think of as Eastern religions,
Yes.
or other religions in the African continent, and some communities, many ethnic groups, do not actually follow a formal religion, which is also, part of our experience as human beings. So I just wanted to make sure that I answer that question and just remind folks that the Ethiopian church, the Egypt, the all the stories about Egypt and Moses and the Queen of Sheba that are in the Bible in the Old Testament, all these things happened in the African continent. So
Yes.
really, the discussion about is Christianity being a part of enslavement should be looked at in the context and only in the context of what happened in the last maybe 300 years, where it was used as a tool to whitewash.
To
And
whitewash. Yes. Very,
but
very important point.
important because then, as a Christian, as a person of faith, I'm confident that the faith that I follow is not just a faith that is not of Western origins, but
Mm-hmm.
also part of my story that I should embrace and not use to oppress myself. I'll finish by saying this regarding that topic. I recently wrote a letter to my parish, sorry, diocese. So I'm a Catholic, so I wrote a letter to my diocese, and my simple statement to them was that they need to pull down these images of white dominance in the church, because it no longer represent. It's not. It doesn't represent who we are. It doesn't also represent the history of the church correctly. And lo and behold, they agreed with me that Christianity and holiness and faith is not a preserve of a particular race. It's part of all of our experiences collectively.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well said. Well said. Thank you for that. And before I introduce the others, let me just, because I want to involve the those that are watching, and I want our guests as well to read the chat, because we want to engage the audience. Audience, we're at where if you have something to say, you go ahead and make your comments, and we are reading them. And thank you, Dr. Nathan, for responding to what you're reading in the chat. That is awesome. Lemuel Tell is agreeing with you and said there's no religious faith that started in Europe. Is what he's saying. I don't know. That is his comment. And someone had there was okay. Tyrone Nurses and mental slavery is wide and ingrained in our minds. Even as we grow, we are reminded by our government and the teachers that we must accept ourselves as we are and what we are told, and that's the way it is. Okay, so that's Tyrone Nurse. And there was Adrian Hines is saying, resolve mental slavery and negative thoughts by informing yourselves and infusing their subconscious with manifestations and affirmations derived from the information you have gathered. and affirmations. I mean, a lot of what he's saying there, those are some of the things that I have done.
Mhm.
And before I see Pigeon is on, Pigeon Odiwengu is on, and Kimar Stewart is on. And I'm going to go to them with this question, Dr. Um, Wangusi. Seeing that you were on earlier with me, I'm just going to engage them, welcome them, and engage them. Let me go to Pigeon, because you were on earlier. Pigeon, can someone really um, emancipate their mind? Can it really happen, or is it that it's going to take a community? Can someone who is enslaved say, you know what, I am going to emancipate my mind. I'm going to free myself of mental slavery. That's what Bob Marley says, that we need to free ourselves of mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Is it personal, or will it take a community? What are your thoughts?
Greetings. Apologies for being a bit late. Uh,
Quite accepted.
yeah, it is a personal responsibility. There's a level of consciousness and self consciousness. Of course, self consciousness starts first before you are aware of your environment. You must be aware of yourself. As much as the environment actually dictates how you conduct yourself, but if you don't know yourself somehow and properly, then
Mm,
you'll be prone to the environmental effects on yourself. And therefore, it is a personal responsibility. It starts from you, it's internal. Before it moves out to other people, it must start from you. You know,
mhm,
uh, I think it's Dr. The one in the book of Black Destruction of Black Civilization. I think he says that despite of us being free physically, we chose to be enslaved mentally
mhm.
because we were actually physically enslaved.
Yes.
That is using the chains and so many things that they did to our grands and ancestors. But we remain mentally enslaved by choice. And this
By
is what we
choice.
call, yeah, this is what now we call neo-colonialism.
Mm,
Because imperialism and colonialism was more of like a physical and mental slavery. But the neo-colonialism is purely more of like mental slavery. And that is the mind that we have, that the West is the solution to our problems, or is actually the solution to all we want. And therefore, we want to dress like them, we want to dance like them, we want to look like them, we want to borrow from them. Who puts gun on your head to be like them? Who actually put gun on your head to go borrow from them, to go worship whatever they want? And that's why Marcus Garvey says, if the white man has chosen to create his white God, we the black man must also create our black God. So it is actually a choice that we must actually start with, and is what Kwame Nkrumah talks of, what he called positive action. And the positive action, Nkrumah in his book Consciousness divide positive action in two levels: personal positive action and community positive action. They
mm.
represent them with a PA of small PA and small and capital PA. It must start from person to community. The vibes must start from personal positive vibration. Then the vibration affect the people around you. Then you vibrate in the same frequency. It can't start from outside. Before it become a group, it is from a person to grouping. So that's what I can give you as an answer to that question.
Yeah, yeah. Quite interesting. You say that it is a choice. Kimar, do you think that it's a choice when you consider all that we have? We are here in the Caribbean, and you have been a Caribbean man, a Bajan man all your life. Do you think that it is a choice to us here in the Caribbean to remain enslaved, or we a product of what we have endured historically?
Yeah, yeah. Well, good night, Marcia. Good night to you.
Good night, Timar.
Good night to all of the guests. Good night to my special friend John Leacock, and good night to my other brothers on the program. I'm very proud I am to be here with you. Especially Pigeon. I've been watching him on the show for quite a while, so thank you. Also, the doctor here. I can't get his name pronounced, so I don't want to try. you know, but I saw he's been doing some very good work as well. So I just want to applaud these young gentlemen for stepping up to the plate. We give young gentlemen a very bad rap in society. The young men in society. So here we are in the reverse now, having a set of young men, not only Barbadian but worldwide, who we could be proud of, right? Who are stepping up for society, who are educated, who are doing all of the right things, and I think we need to support them. Um, and good night to all of the members of the loyal opposition. Let me not forget our patron supporters. But the question of choice, Marcia. In my journey to self-actualize
Mhm.
and to realize who I was in the world, um, I had to go through some very dark days. Some very dark, depressing times. Self-isolation, and through that process and engaging elders and trying to find out the things that confuse me. I then became wise after a set of years. It didn't just happen in the click of a finger,
Mhm.
right? But before, um, I had a notion that it was a choice, but then I got deeper into the rabbit hole, and then I realized that it is not so much. It is a choice, yes, but it's not so much the fault of our brethren and sisters in that they were programmed, and that they were brainwashed, and that they were miseducated by the system,
Mhm.
right? So even though uh, a person may claim that they're emancipated, their way of thinking is still very much like the colonialists, right? The way they do things is still very much like the language they speak is very much colonial. The music they listen to is very much colonial. And if you say that to those persons, they would disavow that, and they would claim, well, we are free, we
Right.
are free, we are free. But ignorance, Marcia, is also a tool that was effectively used by the colonial masters, in that they allow the people to bask in ignorance without actually knowing that they are basking in ignorance and very self-destructive behaviors. And those self-destructive behaviors are the things that we pride society upon. So we encourage the youth to go and become versions of themselves that are, and agree with Pigeon, they go and adopt basically the white man's philosophy and the white man's way of living, right? So the term ghetto, Marcia, right? What is a ghetto? Person say, oh, we live in the ghettos, we live in the hood, ghetto, 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 ghetto. Not realizing that the first ghetto was established in Warsaw, Poland, right in Europe, white man's country, right? And ghettoism was derived from Nazism, and really Nazi government put Jews and other people in these close knit concentration camp facilities, poor housing, poor water, no electricity. Basically, the characteristics of what people determined to be a ghetto, and that was the white man's way of living. But no, Marcia, our people, Caribbean people, black people, are very proud to come and say that they hail from the ghetto and they represent the ghetto, not recognizing that the ghetto was a white man's way of living, and a white man's the way how it was forced
Mm-hmm.
people in Europe, right? So it's a choice, yes, but ignorance, Marcia,
Mm-hmm.
would allow you to either make that choice
Ah. Mm-hmm.
or ignorance, or no, will give you, will empower you to, if you have a choice or you don't have a choice. If it's programmed in you and you don't think you have a choice, well, no, we'll see what we have now. But over to you.
Yeah. So you're saying that it is a choice, but once you believe that we could educate ourselves. Once the education happened, the right type of education, you're thinking that we would make the right choice. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, if you were given the true history of blacks and black people, and you were given the true history of whites and white people, and you were given the true history of Jews and the Jewish people, and you were given the true history about Hitler and the Nazis, and the truth about I won't want to say Christianity, but I would say the truth about belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
Then black people on the whole would change completely, and the entire world will come into sync if you were given the correct level of education. But I say that our modern day education system is a miseducation system.
Yeah. Interesting. Guys, I didn't have this particular question issue. I had it there, but later down, because we have somebody from Trinidad coming on, and I wanted to touch on it in terms of modes of worship and how slavery and colonialism has affected our type of worship, the way we worship. But I think that if we don't deal with it now, we're kind of skirting around, and it can be trouble. Dan, it can be trouble to get into this, but we need to make some trouble sometimes, and really look at it. And I know we're going to have differing views, but guys, and I think I'm going to go to we haven't heard from Chirora in a little bit. Chirora, do you really believe that looking at us as black people, Africa and its diaspora, do you think that religion is the main reason why we are still, some people say we're still enslaved mentally? Do you really think that? Because I keep seeing that coming up in the chat, and I think that's why Dr. Wangusi addressed it. Do we really believe that is the main culprit? And before you answer that, think about the history of both the continent and the Caribbean and those in the diaspora, those in the Americas. Think about how we got here, and how the enslavement occurred. Think about how the colonization occurred in Africa. Is religion the real issue here? Is this the real the culprit here, Chirora?
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you for everyone on the panel. I really love this panel. It's beautiful. These people I'm really excited to be on the same panel with these gentlemen. The brother from Nigeria, I think Nigeria, he was looking for the one who wrote The Destruction of Black Civilization. That's Eric Chancellor Williams. He was a good man. I actually read it.
Dr. Nathan, was that you? Because there's nobody. We only have Kenya and Uganda.
Oh, no, I think it's Brother Pigeon. I think it's Pigeon. That's his name.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he was from Nigeria for some reason.
Kenya.
No, from Kenya. Okay. That's my neighbor here. So back to your question, but before I answer it, I would first want to empathize with our brothers and sisters in Palestine with what they are going through. And we survived it with the Kenyans and Ugandans because initially the British wanted the Jews to be relocated here because they really looked at us as a kind of people who would easily submit and who would probably be wiped out by now, or maybe would survive by just provide labor. That's that's why most African black people survived enslavement, because we had to provide labor. And when I see what's happening in Palestine and the war is going to spread over the Middle East, and that is going to be madness, so I empathize with them. So going with a topic we are talking about religion, and the brother who just spoke talked about something about miseducation. And remember the first time the first topic we talked about, it was the miseducation of our people. And there's a book that was written by Carter. It was Carter G. Woodson, and that book, The Miseducation of the Negro, was a very important book that I believe every person should read, mostly black people. And Carter G. Woodson looked at our society, and what I love is that our problems from Africa to the US, to Europe, to the Caribbeans are the same. But when we are using the lens to examine the problems, we use the lenses based on where we come from. But those who have been lucky to interact and study and read our people, they have realized that we have the same problems. And the biggest problems is that we're suffering from inferiority complex and we are poor as a result. So going about religion, I wouldn't blame religion, at large. I would start with education, because he who controls the mind,
Mhm.
he owns you. Once you control the mind, then you control the man. So when you control a man's thinking, then he cannot go anywhere. And from Carter G. Woodson's book, he says, once you control a man's thinking, you don't have to show him the exit or the back door. He'll show it himself. But religion, for some reason, contributes, because you see, the human soul always looks for a where to get hope from. When we have despair, we have somewhere where we have to cling on for hope. And what gives us hope is religion. When we believe that there's a power somewhere that actually can solve our problem, that is listening to us, it's a source of hope. And in Africa, and I believe in most of black communities, politicians uh, know that when they don't attract a certain religion, they don't go through. Like here in Uganda, if you don't have a vote from the Catholic Church and Christian, I mean the Protestant, you're not going to win an election. So you see, it's a control in a society. But saying that, we should also bear the fact that humanity evolves. We change as time goes on. And this is why we are having these questions. So maybe people change also in their beliefs, in their way of their beliefs. They are not going to stay the same, they will change. But I personally, I'm non-denominational. I don't have a religion that I subscribe to, because I don't believe that I have to be a decent human being by identifying myself with a certain way of belief. I believe if I know the ways of my people and how they treated one another and the society, I'll probably be a better human being. But I don't want to impose my beliefs on anyone. I respect everyone else's belief. But when you look at the structure of religion, because when the slavery was coming, it came hand in hand with the enslavers. But as my brother Wangusi was saying, these religions, when you look at them from the beginning, they started from Africa, and all of them started from Africa. The problem is that now they were hijacked for doing something bad and terrible. But now, because that's why you're seeing even the war is almost starting a world war, because white supremacy cannot survive without defining themselves as the superior ones in religion, as the right people who because you don't know what it means to have the picture of Jesus as white, to have the angels as white. It is magic. It is everything, because these young kids in Africa, wake up in the morning and they look at the picture of Jesus and they say, Jesus doesn't look like them. And they definitely want to be like that guy. They go to school and they see the teacher is teaching them in the language of someone who looks like Jesus. They go to TV and the cartoons and everything is a guy, it's a light skin. So you were talking about brother Vibes Cartel. I've followed Vibes Cartel for a long time. He's one of the most celebrated here in Africa. Uh, and we can say this young man had a problem of self belief, and it came from how he actually saw the society and how he grew up, and the picture kept improving, growing up, and he became so inferior. So we must understand that religion is a contributor to this, but I wouldn't, say religion is the biggest. No, 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 because people have to worship and have something to cling on, but it's a contributor to this. Thank you very much.
And if you can allow me to just respond to
Yes.
some ideas that my brother has raised. So I have a contrary view in some respects, being that we now know that it was not religion, but it was religion being used as a tool to enslave the African mind, which tells me that the contrary is also possible. We can also not only use the fact that we now know that some of these religions and ways of life are already indigenous to us. I'll give you Kenya and Uganda as an example, my brother, that we come from monotheist religions. Most ethnic groups in East Africa were monotheists, and there's a reason for that, because we already had these belief systems, ingrained in us. There's historical evidence, for example, in the Congo, that way before the coming of the European, there was already formal Christianity, right? So once we know that, and this is really important with respect to having knowledge about the truth,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to what has been sold to us and how we've been deceived to believe that we are inferior because of our skin color, because of our of foreign religions or foreign denominations. Let me not say religions, but foreign denominations that were brought to our continent. We now know the truth that from the beginning, Egypt was always an African country. From the beginning, the Egyptian kings and the pharaohs were Africans. They were not these Hollywood renditions that we see on TV. What we do is, as opposed to rejecting those ideas, is to correct those ideas in our own societies progressively by educating ourselves about the truth. Because I think emancipation is about understanding who you are and
Mm-hmm.
having the basis of that in truth. That my skin color, my ethnicity, my height, my racial composition is not a measure of intelligence. It's a measure of access to opportunity, right? The fact that people who are of Caucasian descent, people of African descent have different achievement levels. That only has to do with access to opportunity. So once we start to understand that those are the issues, then we can respond appropriately. The other thing I want to say, and I want to really make sure that everybody who's listening takes this in and puts it very deep in their soul, that our culture, whether it's our music, as you said, and I've said, I have a contrary view, our ways of worshiping, our ways of thinking, our ways of speaking have become the most dominant, by far, the most dominant culture anywhere in the world, right? What I always say this to particularly Africans in the diaspora and Caribbeans, that when they enslaved my people, they expanded my territory. The intent was wrong. The intent was to enslave us. But by doing that, they expanded our territory. Right now, Africans can be found in the entire Caribbean. They can be found all the way in Latin America. They can be found in the US, because when they enslaved my people, they expanded our territory, not just culturally, because whether we're thinking about rap music, whether we're thinking about like contemporary fashion, whether we're thinking about the way American or our systems of governance, even food, a lot of the foods that we eat in North America, the genetic diversity of crops in this part of the world, that happened because our people thought to bring those foods here. For instance, in North Carolina, rice was a staple. It was also part of the slave economy. And the reason for that is because Africans brought seed with them on slave ships plaited into their hair. This idea that, for instance, braiding hair is enslavement. No, the Maasai always braided their hair. The Hawa always braided their hair. Only African hair can be braided. Only African hair can be molded like clay. Everyone else's hair is, it sits as it is.
Yeah.
So once we start to understand that what we think about ourselves is it's a shadow of who we really are. And we've been convinced somehow to believe that, our music was taken away and it was somehow silenced. No. Rap music, African beats have become the most dominant beat in any part of the world. You listen to music, whether you're listening to bachata, in salsa in Latin America, pop music in Europe. So our culture is dominant. It's not weak, it's dominant. And you need to internalize that.
Yeah. Oh wow, that is so true, and I think trying to remember. One of you might know the exact the exact figure, but I think that the diaspora it was 140 million persons in the diaspora. Somebody can research that for me. Over 140 million people in the diaspora. It's quite interesting, of Africans in the diaspora. As you were saying that we have expanded,
And that should not be. Well, the intent initially was to enslave a people. All they did was to give us more land and cover, right? To expand not just our cultural presence, but also expand our wealth. So let's not apologize for that. Let's just own it and use it.
And that's why we're doing a show like this, because I think it's important that we examine what has happened to us and to see how do we break away from that. And there's some people who are believing that one of the areas that we really need liberation in, it's this area of religion. And I'm going to just spend a couple more moments with it, and then we're going to move on because it can be so divisive. But let me go to Pigeon. Pigeon, someone on the here says, yes, religion is a major part. However, it can be used to emancipate the mind of Black people if it's restructured to have an Afrocentric perspective. What are your thoughts on that? Black man from the island said that. What are your thoughts on that, Pigeon?
Okay, thank you once again. Let me say properly greetings to brothers in the forum. I see my brother there, Wandusi, my brother from Uganda here, and all brothers available. Greetings once again. Apologies for that. This subject, let me read the quote by Kwame Nkrumah. He says that the traditional face of Africa includes an attitude towards man which can only be described in his social manifestation as being socialist. This arises from the fact that man is regarded in Africa as primarily a spiritual being, a being endowed originally with a certain inward dignity, integrity, and value. It stands refreshingly opposed to the Christian idea of the original sin and degradation of man. Now, let me get back again to handle some few things that, of course, Kwame Nkrumah talked about in regards to these issues of religion. And he says an aspect of priesthood. You see, religion aspect and spirituality aspect is an element of idealist mentality, what we call idealism. Those who believe in spirits and ideas. That arises from the fundamental aspect that we do not know what is the origin of human being, and whether we believe on pantheism, theism, and whatever, whether the universe has forces from the outside or forces internally. And this Nkrumah actually tackled very well in the same book called Consciousness, which is actually the philosophy and ideology for decolonizing Africa, where he handles the issues of inside and outside thesis. But there's a category of philosophers, so-called Palles and Barclays, and Barclays becomes an idealist. And the problem in idealism is that when actually Nkrumah analyzes the Greek society, he comes up with the aspect of the leaders, religious leaders in society. And he says, for example, that I want to quote to bring it to this, that the Greek religion was congregational. This fact helped to consolidate priesthood power for the rites are performed communally and not individually. Now, come back to this aspect and understand that religion brought a class, what you call classism in a society, where the priesthood and the priest assumed a higher power or higher class in a society on how close they were with the so-called God or the supreme power, and this gave them power to actually appear to be divine beings. We are all equal beings. We all come from the same matter. And that's why he say we were spiritual beings. To some people who have gone deeply to understand African spirituality, they actually say we are not human beings. We are divine beings. So this aspect of religion introducing some priesthood or the sheikhs who then intervene between you and God of hierarchical powership is what brings now the so-called inequality and other things now called the class struggles or inferiority in a society. We are all equal in the footings, or even if you read the text in the Bible, we are all created in the image of God, which means what? We are gods in his image. So the religion was actually indoctrinated in the aspect of now the introduction of the so-called Western manipulating the religion to bring the aspect of spirituality. So you cannot be worth before God until you pass through some human being like yourself who is either a priest or whatever to intervene on your behalf to gods or God. Of course, even in the previous African tradition, we had those who perform rituals and miracles, whatever. But the connection of man to the Creator is personal. It doesn't need a bridge in between. So this is where I'm bringing the aspect of idealism, coming up with the structure of how man connected with his Creator, that it has to come through either Jesus Christ to intervene to that, or through a priesthood, or through Muhammad to help you reach to God. That's not true. So this is actually the basis of division within a society, racism, and is the basis of inferiority and superiority within a society. Until man understands that we as human beings, no matter what the skin pigmentation are, we come from the same matter, which means we are equal and we are actually, as in Nkrumah's analysis, we are supreme being, spiritual being. We are not just in that aspect of all this level. So this is what I contextualize in regards to the problem that Africa suffer on religion, just because they don't understand who they are. And that is what, if I wind up, that's what Dr. Chancellor Williams says in his book, that in order, in the other words, there cannot be real identity without our heritage until we know what our heritage really is. It is hidden in our history, but we are ignorant of that history. We have been floating alone, basking blissfully in the sunning heritage of other people.
Thank you so much, Pigeon. And I know this is an area that it's almost like you don't, it's a sacred cow. You don't touch this area, but it is something you can see it coming up in the chat a lot, and I think that we need to look at it. We have varying views about it, as you can see on the panel. There's some areas we agree on, some we slightly disagree on, etc. But I think it's fair to say that we do believe that that religion can be used. It's not that you need to throw it out, but it can be used as a tool to enslave the mind. The last comment will come from Kimar on this, and I'm going to move on from this topic and go into another aspect of the discussion. Kimar, any thoughts that you want to share on this, based on what we've been discussing here tonight?
Yes, Marcia. I feel obligated to make a comment because I'm a I'm a Seventh Day Adventist, you know, and that's my church. Um, However, I like to say that through that journey is how I saw self-discovery, right? Not through the lens of a religion, right? But there were teachings within that gave me a level of enlightenment that I would encourage anyone to pursue, right? Because it brought me closer to, our God above, and it gave me a personal relationship with the Lord. So I would never uh, encourage anyone to do otherwise. Um, However, we tend to focus on religion from a mainstream narrative, um, but we recognize that religion was an act, a purpose act, which was set to commercialize spirituality. So the same way how cell phones were developed to communicate between one another, like how we hear communication or technology. If you study uh, primitive history, the first language was telepathy, right? People communicated through telepathy, right? So as time emerged and technology came in, man evolved, and the way of man evolved, his habits evolved, things changed, and the powers that be uh, continued to commercialize everything that was within. They commercialized on the outer. So the first mode of transportation in history was your 2 feet. We walked everywhere. Uh, Animals walk everywhere, right? The truest sense, they walk by foot. Animals don't drive cars, right? Uh, Humans pay to drive cars, right? So that was the act of commercializing your natural gift, which is to walk by your 2 feet, right? The same way how telephone or communication lines were developed, and like I said, the first language was telepathy. So as time went on, Marcia, as Pigeon said, the powers that be recognize the human's weakness in terms of wanting, a god or an idol or somebody to craft them an identity, right? They wanted an identity, and the powers that be crafted a set of identities and put it out there, right? Which then enslaves people, but enslaves them through, as they would say in biblical words, their sinful nature, right? Their sinful nature. So you cannot be enslaved, Marcia, unless you want something that somebody else is offering, right? You can't be enslaved unless you want something that somebody else is offering, unless you do it by force, right? So nowadays, Marcia, it is so easy, right? Notwithstanding the religion, the world has, in my opinion, gone past religion. COVID has brought an end to religious systems completely, in my mind, right? People are free-minded. People are out here exploring themselves and exploring different gods and exploring different worlds, and the scriptures also speak to that and how we observe it. But in these modern times, Marcel, for yourself as a religious minded person, if you look at what's happening now, the scriptures will speak to these, and it will consider them to be what we call the end times. Right? But for the younger Gen Zs and the persons like myself and Pigeon or whatever, uh, we see it as I say, an end to a new beginning for us.
Mhm.
Right? So I would not necessarily worry myself at this point now about the hold that religion has had on the world, because I believe that it has been brought to an end. right? And you can see that, Marcia, by the way how we come on here and express ourselves in multiple ethnicities, multiple religious groups, multicultures, people from different backgrounds, diversities, whatever, and ideas are allowed to flow that even the religious minded people have a problem with, right? But this is a new age, Marcia, the age of information, right? And a new way of doing things. So I just said all of that to say basically that the way in which the world has transformed and the way in which the younger generations are seeing the world are completely different. And those traditional holes of religion, politics, and institutions in which traditionally are hypocritical in the way they operate, the the more open-minded persons, not just young, but I call it multi-generational leadership, is emerging from all spheres to bring an end to all oppressive systems, Marcia, and they would end there.
Yes, well, thank you, Kimar. Thank you. I think, as you can hear and see, there's so many different views here, and which is good. And I think that's good and healthy, and I think we are learning and picking things from each other and connecting with something. Some things you might say I don't really necessarily agree with that, but we are learning together, and I'm going to switch it up a little bit because for a lots of people, as I said, they believe that religion is a source and a method of present day mental enslavement. And I think we have generally agreed that it's not just religion, it's a way it's used. All right, it's a way that it has been used. I think that we have generally come to that agreement. But what are some of the other sources and methods of present day mental slavery? What are some of the sources and methods of other sources and methods of present day mental enslavement? Sharura, you touched on it a little earlier when you talk about the type of education that we have received. So let us see if each of us could come up with a different type, okay, a different source or method of present day enslavement. Sharura.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. And you know, the topic that we were just talking about of religion, it's a very big one, and I normally try to avoid it because everyone is passionate about their beliefs, and you don't
Correct.
want to.
Yes.
So yeah, but it's good to discuss because in life it's always good to engage. You never know. We can have someone converting to Christianity tonight or Islam or anything. But that's why, because once you learn something good, you take it up. So education is a topic that I've been very passionate about, and for some reason, uh, when I was a young man growing up, uh, for some reason I didn't realize that I was too brainwashed until I grew up and I started reading, and then I landed on Carter G. Woodson's writings, and everything I could read, and I would reflect on the society, how I grew up, how I was taught, how I was taught in school that if I didn't speak English, I'll be punished. How we would read books, I mean, the mind is a very fragile item that you're dealing with. That's why you see the mind is open to suggestion. And this is, if I meet, we are 5 people here on this show, and if I sat with the 5 people and I say, do you know it is nice if a man sleeps with a man? Uh, the five people will say, "Oh, wow, disgusting, disgusting. That's terrible." But up to the 5, 1 or 2 later will start reflecting and say, "Oh, how about that? I think it's something that you would," because the mind is open to suggestion. The mind is very fragile, and most especially when the mind is young. So I looked back at how I was taught that in class we would look into textbooks, and the kids who were in these books were white kids, and the life they were living was wonderful. It was like dreamland. And so we graduated to another level where we could write to pen pals. I think in Europe and the UK, because our system is built behind the British system. So we would write, and they would write back. Beautiful white girls with their pictures. I never saw any pen pal who was black. So I mean, the mind is growing up, and I'm seeing myself. I was in the school, all dirty. The school couldn't even afford cement, but the kid I'm looking at in the picture is everything that I would want to be. And as time went on, I kept moving up, and I would see the people in our society who were highly educated were speaking the white man's language very well, dressed like the white man, living like the white man, eating like the white man. The food they ate was a white man's food. So this is what I wanted to be. This is exactly. And the mind was getting nourished every other day. Well, by the time we grew up, no, fortunately, we didn't have television in my rural area back then. And if we heard it like today, I think it would be worse. A few days ago, I had a problem with my daughter's school when I looked into the textbook, and they were saying John and who are interacting. So this is to guide the kid on something. So I saw the picture of John, and I saw the picture of the lady who they mentioned. They were white. So I asked the teacher. The school is an Indian run school, a beautiful school. I love it. It's non-denominational. It's one of the reasons I like about it. So I looked at the pictures, and I asked the teachers, and I said, the pictures you're portraying don't look like the kids. So how about we portray using our people and even the names? We can have Sherura, we can have Mujisha, we can have Wandusi, we can have our names.
Mhm.
And to the teachers, it was strange because you see, as my brother said, ignorance, because they don't know anything else. This is what they know, and sometimes you don't blame them. Because I remember when I was coming back to Africa, I was bitter. I had a lot of bitterness, and when I got here, I found out people were so brainwashed that I felt like I was in a village of Ku Klux Klan because they glorified white people more than anything. But I didn't blame them. It's the education. That's how I was when I was being brought up. See, so education is the building the foundation of our mindset,
Mhm.
and the mindset that we are nurturing with the education that we have is a mindset of inferiority complex.
Mhm.
And this mindset can only take you to one direction of being mentally enslaved and being subservient to the people that you glorify. And in this case, who are the Anglo Saxons or the Caucasian race as well. So, and even see, now we have become the bottom of the pit of all other races. Because when you look at us, we are treated like terrible creatures globally. Middle East, South and North America, everywhere we go, we are despised. And not because we are inferior, no, because we have accepted our position of inferiority. And as I conclude, Marcia, I believe the biggest weapon was for Black people to inherit an education system that was designed by people that enslaved us. And we continued that system up to date. And the people like the Chinese threw away the European system, developed their own system. Was it easy? No, it was very difficult. But they understood that if they did not, they understood that the system that was built by people that enslaved them was not a system to benefit them, was a system to make them subservient. And this was not rocket science. I understand from our perspective that after colonialism and enslavement, we had to build economies. There was a
Right.
priority, so it was difficult to pay attention to education. But now we are realizing we are now. If you try to identify, because the modern humanity is preoccupied with identification, our children, mine and yours, will fail to identify. They will be asked, "Who are you?" and will be a nobody. This happened to our brothers, the African Americans, when they, after the Emancipation Proclamation, they were trying to identify themselves as either, were they African Americans or who were they? And they didn't want to be African Americans. They wanted to be anything but African. And they found that they couldn't be anything if they didn't have African in them. So it was quite confusing. So education is the foundation of a society. If you don't have education, then you have nothing. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. So, Sharur has identified education as a source and a method of present day mental enslavement of Africa and its diaspora. Let me go to Dr. Nathan. What would you, is there something else? Because we want to move the conversation along. That you would identify as a source or method of present day mental enslavement of Africa and its diaspora.
Yeah, so I was in fact thinking about this quote by Mandela, that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Um, there's also such a thing as miseducation, and we've spoken about this at length, both on this show and other shows. So while we pursue mental emancipation, we have to make sure that we are educating our minds correctly. That's really important. Correct education, both from the perspective of our historical context, as I described earlier, but also in terms of defining what kind of future do we want to define for not just ourselves, our children, but our children's children. Um, the fact is here that the past is gone, and we can only take those lessons from the past and use them to define an alternative future that that our children and our grandchildren will not just be raised in free of the shackles of the past, but also that our societies will not carry over colonization and enslavement. Because the truth is, and this is true in Barbados as it is true in Kenya. The white man left, right?
Hmm.
So the colonial government left, the plantation owners left, and they left us these very beautiful countries. And I was just remembering the clip that you showed about bail conditions, right? That is not a white man enslaving or denying his slave an opportunity for.
You're talking about the Bail Act here in Barbados.
What
Yes.
I'm talking about the Bail Act. That is not a white man. That's another African, or that's another Barbadian oppressing a Barbadian. So it is true that the history is that white or Caucasian civilizations enslaved the African people, but now it's Africans enslaving Africans. It's neo-colonial governments like the government in Barbados oppressing its own people. That's the discussion we need to dominate. That's the discussion we can have now. That is what we can change now. So while we change our historical context and our historical understanding, we need to be cautious about the rooters of this world who are massacring our children, who are enslaving our children by bringing in neo-colonial financial institutions to take over our resources. So that is not something that's being done to us by an external entity, it's being done by people who look like me. Mrs. Motley, the Prime Minister, looks like everyone in this show, and she's the one who's responsible for pushing the crime, the cybercrime,
Cybercrime.
as well as this new Bail Act. Mr. Ruto, the president of Kenya, looks exactly like me. In fact, I'll disclose in this show, his home district, his house where he grew up, is less than 10 miles from where my father grew up. He looks exactly like me. He's of my bloodline. He's an African like me. He's a Kenyan like me. But these are people who, not even just as instruments of colonial powers, but also as instruments of their own interests, are oppressing their own people. So these are the discussions that are relevant to today. And those are the things that we can change. So part of decolonizing, or freeing our minds, as Bob Marley would put it, is also freeing ourselves from our own oppression, from people who are either instruments or who have adopted oppressive ways of dealing with our communities. And you saw that in Kenya. Kenyans categorically rejected attempts by a ruling class, by neo-colonial interests, from taking over their country and oppressing them.
Yes. Very, very well said. Thank you so much for that input and bringing it into our present day, because really that's where what we want to ultimately happen. Because so a lot of times we look at what is happening, what has happened to us historically, and not looking to see what is happening to us right now. As you said, they have left. Yes, they've left some structures, but it's how are we using them? I see Miss Eugenia Charles is here from Haiti, and I figure she will let me know when she's ready. Her camera is on. And I want to welcome her to the show. And we're going to get to her very, very soon. But let me go to Kimar. Kimar, is there another source that you can mention, or method of present day mental enslavement? That's what we're talking about. We're looking at what are the sources and methods of present day mental enslavement. Sharua talked about education, and the Dr. Nathan talks about our leaders, our present day leaders, what they are doing, in terms of governance, etc. What would you say, Kimar, or someone? Is there anything different that you could add?
Well, I can add the part of self imagery and the way we spend our finances, right? Um, in Barbados and all over the world. Uh, and if you look at the Rastafari culture, you see most of the Rastafarian sisters have the dreadlock as their hairstyle, right? Most of our people watch television, and which is very Eurocentric, and we often tend to garner hairstyles and dress and behaviors from what we see on TV. So in the 90s, it was BET TV, Black Entertainment Television, and then as time went on, the channel started to get into more of these like Gossip Girl, take talk show, take interactive sessions, and you see majority of the uh, people around the country spending their monies on foreign imported goods. So we drive a foreign car, preferably from Europe, Japan, China, somewhere. We consume foreign foods because these supermarkets import them and they're much cheaper. We use foreign technologies, cell phones, laptops, TVs, all the technologies from foreign. Uh, we use the foreign slang and lingo and language again, to communicate with each other. And we all tend to prefer to have US currency in hand as opposed to local dollars. Right? So there goes the influence on people's mind to spend your money in a particular direction based off the imagery that was put in front of us and then who we model ourselves after. And you could reference that in the sense that if you have a show, a entertainment show, and you bring some big artists from the United States to Barbados, you will see the whole Botanical Gardens or the Kensington Oval sell out, no seats left. But if you bring a local act, it will take a couple of days, a week, in fact weeks, to try to sell out a show like that. So that is my uh, opinion on that.
Interesting, interesting. Thank you, Kimar. Let me get a quick word from Pigeon, and then I'm going to go to. We would love to hear the lady, the only other lady on the panel. I'm going to go to Miss Eugenia Charles. Well, let me go to Pigeon. Pigeon, can you quickly? Is there anything else that you want to add that you would say that these are, modern and present day forms of mental enslavement?
Yeah, thank you. I will be very quick, and I'll be getting to, of course, still the writings by Dr. Chris Wilson on the ISIS papers keys to color, and she actually identified almost 7 areas or 8 areas of white supremacists control system, which she called the coded system, and that it is upon us, if we want to free ourselves, to decode the system. And these are the areas of mental slavery. One is on the economics,
Mm-hmm.
two is on education, three is on entertainment, four is on labor, we have six on law, five on law, we have politics, we have religion, we have sex, and war.
Mm.
So all those are the areas where we are actually enslaved or colonized. On economics, you look at the paper economics, the currency thing. That's basically slavery. On education, you look at the education system that actually goes contrary to our traditional education system. On entertainment, you look at their media, their entertainment celebrities. We like more of what their Netflix and whatever is showing than what is our traditional movies. On labor, look at the labor relations, how they view people in labor system, like some are inferior, others are the bosses. In the law, they actually don't, they go against our customary laws. They have their own laws that are actually being practiced across our countries that is not giving that true equality, what we call the social justice of a society. Look at their politics, their democracy, and how they practice it. This current type of politics of election and whatever that then brings into these puppet leaders in system is part of their control. Look at the religion, how they use Christianity or Islam to try to control us. Look at the sex aspect, how now they practice all these elements of sex and sexuality that are coming in. And look at the war, how they manufacture guns and everything else and teach us how to use guns to shoot ourselves and others. So all these are potential areas of mental slavery that we must walk away from. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Pigeon. Thank you, very, very good. I have them all listed here. Excellent. Let me bring in Miss Eugene Charles, and because of time, I know she's a radio host and has a wonderful radio show that I'm hoping that we'll become acquainted with. Because of time, I can't go into all of the introductions, but we're very, very happy to have you, ma'am. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this great discussion. I think emancipation, mental slavery, I think for us, for me as a woman, as a Haitian, I think our founding fathers and founding mothers for paving the ways to liberate Haiti and set the stage early on to emancipate ourselves from the shackles and our feet and hands. But the mind, we still have a lot of work to do. And as I listen to the other whole guests on the show talk about the different aspects and the importance of educations, and I think for me as a woman, one of the things that we feed into for mental slavery is the beauty, the way we view beauty. In a way, we lose our own autonomy on how we look at beauty based on what we see on televisions, because this is what they portrayed out there, how we should look, how our body should shape, and the type of makeup we wear, the nails that we put on, the hairstyles that we do, all of those things that deplete our economic system as a race, but fits into the global economy for the people who are making the products that we are using. And as we I don't know for where you are in the nations that you're living in, but I know in Haiti, I notice a lot of my sisters who are being uncomfortable within their own skins and resulting to bleaching, and the impact that can help have on their physical and mental health, but also changing their perceptions to look like a different person. So we have a lot of work to do, and that goes back to educations, teaching our people to accept themselves for who and what they are, and be content with the beauty that we have, with our kinky hair and the protection that it provides for us in the suns. That's very important. And us not being able to see the value, the worthiness of what and who we are as a race. I think that's a lot of work that we have to do, and only education can help us change that kind of thinking. And that has to start in our home. It has to start in our community. One of the things that I think that's also keep us mentally shackled is religion. um we spend a lot of time going to church. We spend a lot of time reading Bibles for those of us who believes in that kind of faith. And oftentimes when we are having conversations, it may refer the verse says this or the verse says that. And that kind of create another level of segregations and put us in this: if I'm not part of this faith, then I can't mingle with you. You may be my mother, my brother or sisters, but because we don't share the same faith, then perhaps if we are having a holiday celebration, a member of the family may choose to not participate because of their religion. So I think if we are working on building ourselves to become a self-sufficient people, we have to go back to the originality of our people, and not letting religions continue to be this divisive method among us, that's not only divide within the community, but also the family. I can use in Haiti, for example, we have a great level of deforestation. Beside the impact of US occupations on our soil and the environmental degradation it caused for us, but religion plays a role in the deforestation process in Haiti, because when the Christians' faith comes into our town, they see our trees, and the tree may have a snake on there. I mean, you live in the environment. We're supposed to blend together, and all the animals and the different creatures are there to play their roles. But if because it is a tree that has a snake in it, they may say, well, that is voodoo, so therefore the snake on there represent a negative vibes, and therefore that tree has to be uprooted. Not taking a moment to sink in and think about the environmental impact. Not only the tree hold the soil, it's also provide water to the earth, and it help retain the soil so we can produce, and it's also help us to be able to get water so we don't suffer from droughts. So that's where the education on different level plays is vital to that discussions.
Yeah. Wow. Quite interesting. Very interesting. Never thought about that. Before that is quite interesting. I could see people freaking out and want that tree cut down. To be honest with you, but we have another say another 40 minutes before we close, and I want to kind of change the um, you know, uh, the, the direction that we're going in a bit, and look, kind of look in the future. So let's first look to see. We're talking about, all the different ways that we're enslaved. Can we look at Africa, look at the diaspora, and see what are is there any progress? Have we made any progress at all? Has there been any progress? And from that, then look to see how we can elevate and we can move forward. Any progress has been made, Dr. Nathan? Do you see any progress that has been made towards true emancipation? So we've already outlined all the history. We outlined what going through presently, the modern day enslavement, the present realities. But do we have any form of true emancipation within Africa and its diaspora?
Yes, I believe so. And I think our future is hopeful as Africans, not just in the homeland, but also in the diaspora. And I say this because um, we are having this discussion, which is a recognition that we have a common destiny as people of color.
Mhm.
Um, we are of the same kinship, and the fact that we were emancipated. That I think uh, be should have been our first step forward in terms of recognizing that our slavers are gone here in the Caribbean. Our colonizers are gone in the African continent, and therefore that gives us an opportunity to redefine our social consciousness, to redefine our economies, but also establish systems of governance that are responsive and enabling to our kinspeople or Africans and Black people. I think once we start to recognize that we are the ones who determine our destiny, and we are the ones who determine where our path will ultimately lead. Recognizing that the world is not flat. The world has influences. That the world has actors who want to exploit and take advantage of our people, and just make sure that those interests are challenged where necessary. I gave you the example of Kenya, where there was a broad recognition by an entire generation that we were not going to accept the conditions of the West. In fact, the good news we have today is that in addition to the Finance Bill of 2024 having been challenged by the young people and the Gen Zs, the Superior Court in Kenya today ruled that the previous year's finance bill was actually unconstitutional, right? And also not accepting oppression, not only from the West, but also from within, in terms of individuals like our Prime Minister here in Barbados, who wants to act like a plantation owner and oppress and repress our people, that we should come out and speak up to challenge that status quo. Because freedom is not, it's never given, it's earned, and it's fought for. And even after it's earned, even after emancipation, it's going to be a continuing battle to preserve.
Mhm.
Because other than people of Caucasian or Asian or Arab descent coming to colonize the African people for economic benefit. That's just the human condition. Greed is a human. The truth about it is that slavery was a part of African society too, and let's not forget that. So before we even start pointing fingers, you have to self-reflect and realize that a lot of what we're complaining about and a lot of what we're blaming the West for, we have done and we continue to do to ourselves. And once you have that recognition, then we can change that narrative and change our ways of behaving, change our ways of governing, change our ways of worshiping, fully in the knowledge that have we have a responsibility, but also our destiny only depends on what we do as a people. So, back to this question you asked earlier about like, what is the hallmark of an emancipated mind? What's the definition of an emancipated mind? An emancipated mind is one that understands and knows that the future, in terms of their destiny, their survival, and their future prosperity, only depends on them. It's not defined and determined by another person. That's what slavery in its core was. You took a group of people and you put them in a condition where they could not make any decisions about their life. And when you left, they still believe that they still cannot make decisions about their life. That's what the enslaved mind does to us. But we have to recognize that for us to have good governance systems, for us to have prosperous economies, for us to have functional governments, for us to have free and democratic societies, all that is only and exclusively in our hands as free people.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Pigeon, the same question to you. Have we made any progress as a people, both Africa and in the diaspora, towards true emancipation? And give us an example. Because of time, we can't give many examples. We only have about 25 minutes.
Oh, thank you. But permit me to introduce to your conscious that we have two levels of emancipation. As I had said it before, is that we had physical emancipation and mental emancipation. What basically happened prior to African getting so-called independence was physical emancipation. But the mental emancipation hasn't left us. And that's why I say it's upon us to start thinking on how we emancipate ourselves mentally. And this is because, yes, we are seeing symptoms of some of us, like now here, starting to discuss about who we are, getting back to Afrocentric thinking and discussions, which is positive. There are people who have started more of what we call Pan-African schooling, trying to actually redirect education curriculum. We have doctors who have gone back again to try now incorporate our traditional healings or our traditional herbs, as much as some of them think that our doctors were called witchcraft or witch doctors. Well, what their doctors do is actually that what they call witchery or witchcraft. That's what they do. So we actually are seeing that coming in. We are seeing also Africans trying to go up against this political system of democracy and elections by going against these leaders who are elected in this system. We are seeing also Africans trying to embrace their culture and their names once again, the names that were taken away from us or the names that we never embrace anymore. And we are seeing also us trying now to start appreciate our own entertainment and putting it a global space. See what the Nigerians are doing with their movies and whatever they try to propel. We are also trying to embrace our songs. So basically, I can say that we are towards the right trajectory, but it will take a lot of our mental consciousness to understand really the codes that actually fix us into the system and how we decode it. It's upon one of us and all of us to start the process. Sister Marcia, you're starting the process yourself. I'm doing the process myself. And in that way, I believe sooner or later, we will be free mentally. The same way Ngugi wa Thiong'o decided to actually decolonize the system of writings, and he decided to do his books in Kikuyu. while other writers were trying to do their books in English. He said, I'll do it in Kikuyu, you translate it to your language if you want it. So it's upon that direction that I'm seeing we are taking. And I know we are actually headed there, but we need to actually speed it up a bit by high level of consciousness amongst ourselves, by understanding who we are. We must understand yourself in order to emancipate yourself. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sharura, Sharura, can you, have we made any progress towards true emancipation? And give us an example.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you. I appreciate. Yeah. I think in a certain level we have, but we have to also recognize that what we are dealing with is not something that is going to go away within a few years, because we're dealing with an issue. The African and the Black people suffered mental, destabilization, because when you get enslaved for more than 500 years, to recover from that is magical. But yes, we are making a lot of, and as someone said, it starts like how Marcia you have so far tonight. You have the entire Black community here, the representation from different, corners of our planet, and so this is the beginning. And when we look at the whole discussion that we are having, the whole community, looking at Africa as a continent, we are the youngest continent the youngest continent on our planet. The last statistics I saw is that almost 70% of our population is below 25, and 80 something percent is below 30 years. Now, these kids they have a lot of information, and every day they keep asking questions. And the more they ask, the more they find out things that are not really, comforting. So I believe that once these kids keep asking questions, a lot is going to change, and I'm looking for the better. So we are changing, gradually. Things are changing, and as you say, now you can see how the music from Africa is taking the world by storm. Thank you very much, Marcia.
Yes, excellent. And let me go to Kimar from Barbados. Kimar, you still there with us? Is Kimar there from Barbados?
Yeah, still here, Martha.
Yes, right. So Kimar, the same question for you. Any progress we've made? You've seen us here in the Caribbean. Any progress towards true emancipation in your mind?
Well, I think we're on the way, on the way somewhere,
Yes.
but I don't think we've quite derived where we're going yet, but we're going somewhere. um, I actually like the fact that I could sit on this forum and connect with uh, fellow Africans from over here, right? So years ago, this could not happen, right? So that I define as progress. The fact that we speak the same language, that we could understand each other very clearly, are signs of progress. Um, I suspect eventually we will have direct flights from Barbados to Africa, and that can be signified as progress. Eventually, we have ships flowing from here and there that we can have direct passage that we could get past just sitting on the Zoom or or just talking. We actually be doing physical trade, and doing trade with each other across borders. So I would say yes, Marcia, we've had progress, maybe not as much progress as we want, but progress also has to involve people. So therefore, the ones like us, we have to inspire those persons who look onto us into awakening onto the levels that we're at, and to encourage them also to follow the journey and to embark on their separate individual journeys as well, and to connect back to the roots, so where it all started, Marcia. The history. Um, Many people in the Caribbean would like to travel, so as opposed to travel to Europe or travel to Not that it is where we're going, these places, but we're looking to rekindle, you know, that lost ancestral connection and to build the African bridge,
Yes.
as the real show say. So I would say yes, we've had some progress.
We see some progress. In fact, that we are even on here tonight, I like that, and connecting. And I get to see my sister from Haiti. Sorry she wasn't on earlier. We're going to just have to have you on by yourself at some point, because you were the first to be physically emancipated, and they surely made what would say, I'm looking for the word, a show of you, to say to us, look at Haiti, you don't want that. But Miss Charles, what are what are some of the, do you see anything, any kind of progress that we've made? The same question to you.
Marcia, I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of in Haiti and in the diaspora. I've seen a lot of our youth who's going back to the core values that our founding fathers had left for us. I've seen Haitians in the diaspora and in Haiti trying to make more use of the native tongues. It is true that we have two official languages, Haitian Creole and French. Much of our educational system is dominated by the French, since we were colonized by the French. But now we are making more of an effort to use the native tongue that's 100% of the populations are using. Haitians in the diaspora and in Haiti are making more effort to going back to understanding our culture and how that help us as a nations to get our independence and what role it's going to play in reshaping the nations. I think we still need to make progress in emancipating our politicians' mind, because for Haiti to prosper as a nation, to stand in its place as an empire the way Jean-Jacques Dessalines wanted it, we must go back to understand that we were built as a nation to fight against oppression and imperialism. And for us to do that, we need to be soldiers, the same way the 1805 Constitution says every Haitian is a good father, a good mother, a good son, good daughter, but most of all, a good soldier. So to be a good soldier, you must always be on guard. You have to always be ready to defend your nations. So as I looked at July 28th just passed, and it's been 109 years since the U.S. have occupied Haiti and completely restructured our government system, have full controls over the decision-making process into our political system. So we as Haitian need to strive to go back to some of the key values that was left for us by our ancestors, to free ourselves in working toward the betterments of Haiti. And once Haiti become a prosperous nation, it's not going to be just good for Haiti, it's good for the Black race. And Haiti is often used as an example to say, well, look at Haiti, what has become of it. Yes, they were the first Black republic, but look at it now, it's an impoverished nation. I've often said Haiti is not an impoverished nation. It's been made to be poor because many has stolen our resources or keep us in a shape to be made an example of. And so we need Haitian politicians to work toward the betterment of Haiti, to enslave their minds, to look at how the resources in the nation can work to support the country and support the Haitian populations and the Haitian diaspora, because I think a successful Haiti, just like a first Black Republic, Haiti had set the stepstone and the beacon of light to say every Black man and woman or anyone who's oppressed needs to be free and should not be held by a master or should not be held in bondage. And we need to carry that legacy forward. And as children of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, we need to hold that touch, and we need to work in ensuring that imperialism and colonialism is not something that prosper in our world, so the children can have a better future.
Yes, excellent. And I love how you gave it from the perspective of Haiti, because we are hungry for um, good, something good, hearing something good coming out of Haiti. And I
Can I
love
say
the
something,
way
Mercy?
you did that. Yes,
Uh,
Shirura?
Yeah, to the sister from Haiti, it's an honor to meet you, and I really felt terrible seeing the news that it was coming from Haiti. I feel that our leadership, the black leadership, has failed Haiti, and it's an embarrassment. And it's not the first time; it's not the second time. And we have continued, these leaders have failed to come together and have a lasting solution for our brothers and sisters in Haiti. And I saw them being stopped to go to Dominican Republic. And that can show you the resentment that our people face. So it's an honor to have you on this show, and Miss Marcia, what you're doing is unbelievable. It's out of the ordinary. So it's an honor to have you, my sister. I can tell you, I know the people of Haiti are resilient. I know they are fighters. I know this is just something small. You people, you will overcome it, and you'll get back to the better days. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, my brother. And go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
I,
Thank you for saying that, Shirura. Go ahead, Miss Charles. I think that they want to hear you. Go ahead. You were saying something.
I think what we need to understand what's happening in Haiti, it is a fight for the black race. It is not a fight for Haitians alone. The fact that we dare to be free in 1804, we let these individuals knows that we wouldn't be slave anymore. That when we work, we wanted our money to support us. So when you are working against this type of system, and since 1804, from us having to pay an indemnity to France for being a free nations, talking about reparations. So right now we need to work as a race to emancipate ourselves. We can look at what's happening in the Sahel alliance with Burkina Faso and the other nations.
Mm.
We are a strong group of people.
Yes.
Science started in Africa. Human life started in Africa. So it is up to us to work and take that back. I always believe that freedom is not given to you. You fight like Jean-Jacques Dessalines, you take it. Because if you are waiting on someone to passing that torch to you, they can give you a glimpse of hope, making you believe that you're gonna be free, but they always gonna have something over your head that they can jangle you around like a noose. So they can move you to the left or move you to the right. So we need to work to emancipate ourselves in all shape or forms, to have our own businesses so we can depend on our own economic system, to have our own currency so we don't have to have our bank depend on some other country's currency where they can put sanction and block us from doing what we need to do. We can look at Haiti again from example. 95% of the weapons that are coming to be in the hands of the gang members are young men and women who are victims of the system. 95% of those weapons are coming from the United States. And we have our brothers here from Kenya, and I know the people of Kenya do not support this brutal occupations of Haiti, but the US is using the Kenyan soldiers to help propel US policies not to support Haiti. I know there are Caribbean nations who are training soldiers in hope of sending them to Haiti to be part of
Barbados.
the multinational. Yes, Jamaica and the Bahamas. Um, those soldiers are not going there to help the Haitians. The Kenyans have been in Haiti for over a month now. They have not done much to help curb down the insecurity situations in Haiti. The policies that are being placed in Haiti is there for Haiti to continue to remain the backyard of the United States for our resources to be resources that are reserved for the United States. And as we look at the continent of Africa and all these countries who are part of the continent and look at all the struggles we go through in Africa. So we must see the similarities between what is happening in Haiti and what is happening in Africa, and the necessity for us as a Black race to fight for freedom, to fight for our resources to be used to defend and develop our nations, to take control of our educational systems. And Haiti, yes, we go to school, we have an education, but much of the education system prepare us to go work in the United States, go work in Canada, go work in France. So those of us who are involved in educations, we have a responsibility to reshape and reconstruct the materials and the paradigms that it is being taught in the classroom to our children. That's the only way we can construct a better future for our nations. And that's how Haiti can free itself. And that's how Africa can also free itself for us to become a more self-sufficient nation.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow.
And
Ah,
I
I
mean,
tell you, go ahead, and
yeah,
I had one final thing to do, but go ahead, let's flow. Go ahead,
yeah, and I think
Dr. Nathan.
yeah, complementary to that is to just also pat ourselves in the back when we're doing things correctly, and when we are working towards emancipation and not being so self-critical. I think one of as we were talking about this characteristics of enslavement is
Mhm.
self-loathing, right? And not recognizing when you're actually making progress or when you're doing things um, the right way. I give credit to the Kenyan education system. I'll do that without um, without hesitation. We have raised a generation of young people who will not accept the status quo and who have rejected neo-colonialism very articulately. I'll give credit to the Haitian people because they recognize that there's something wrong with this invasion, things that they would have accepted before. Kenya, for example, as an example here, um, are rejecting much. They've rejected the finance bill, for instance, or an
Yeah.
economic imposition by not just the West, but by their own government that other nations are accepting or have been paying for years, which tells us that we are doing something right. So the emancipated mind must also recognize and pat itself on the back and and move forward.
Mm.
Because we can't kind of sit in this, wallow in our self-pity and self-loathing
Yes.
and self-criticism that is not productive. We also have to celebrate our wins, build upon them, and move forward as a people.
Yes, excellent. Very, 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 oh wow. I want to, as we're getting ready to close, I want to ask each of you we to think about one person, whether it's in our lifetime or someone we've read about, um, from from the continent or from the diaspora, that you can identify who is an example of a truly emancipated mind or close to it as possible. The reason I want to do this, sometimes, Eugenia, we talk about these things and these concepts. And it's kind of what Dr. Nathan is talking about, but we don't have anything to measure it against, and we don't know we don't even know when we've achieved it. We don't know what it looks like. And so I want us to before we have another 15 minutes or something like that, just to think of that person or persons, or it could be a movement, or it could be a person, right? That we think that, you know what, that's a good example of an emancipated mind or close to it as possible. Anybody want to go? Kimar, anybody that you could think of? Or movement or a group of people?
I'll
Strengthening,
go first. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
No,
Kimar was going. Go ahead, Kimar.
Well, I was inspired by Kwame Nkrumah. I was also inspired by His Majesty's Selassie, and I was also inspired by Marcus Garvey, right? So that Black Power movement that Marcus Garvey had with the Black Star Liner, and the Emancipation movement at the time when he came to Barbados, Jamaica. Selassie came to the Caribbean as well, met El Barro. So I'm quite inspired with that time.
Yeah. Well, can you do for one of them? Can you tell me why? Say you take, for example, Errol Barrow, who is the first prime minister. By the way, for those of you on the program who might not know, he's the first prime minister of Barbados and considered the father of the nation. Very quickly, just very quickly, Kimar, can you say why you believe he had an emancipated mind?
Well, to conceptualize independence and to take a set of people who were enslaved by the conservative elements of Barbados to peasantry wages and unsanitary ways of living. He then educated a population and educated those people to what they are today, to be living in big concrete houses with working for thousands of dollars with car outside and having children and living a life that is the envy of many large developing countries. So to have that type of foresight and vision, he would have had an emancipated man because he was criticized by his colleagues, and a comment was made by a former minister who said, "So when you educate those people who are going to cut the canes, right?" So I'm inspired by that
Yeah.
foresight, and I yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Me too. How about Pigeon? Pigeon, who is there a person or a movement that you could say close to an emancipated mind?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, I will borrow from my brother. I'll say Nkrumah, but I will also say Nkrumah got inspiration from Marcus Garvey.
Ah,
And I'll say Marcus Garvey also got inspiration from those who fought for the independence of Haiti. I was trying to look for the Savannah Monument. The brothers from Haiti went to liberate America before they came back for Haiti. Because actually, if not the Haitian who fought for the civilization and the movement of America, America could not be what it is without Haitian brothers. So we start from Haitian brothers who actually help emancipate America from the sole dominion or domination. Then they came back to emancipate their country. Then now you go to Marcus. Then from Marcus to me, I go to Nkrumah. Then from Nkrumah to me, I go to the young Sankara. And to the current setup today, I'll be looking forward to the young man Traore, Chiombora, and Patrice Lumumba. These are
oh,
people whom I really have to look at them in all those faces, but without not forgetting the greatest writer Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who did his best to try to decolonize the texts and the writings to African setup.
yeah. So we have these people to look forward to. I'm just like so lifted because the first part can, a little, like, have you a little, feeling a little almost kind of oppressed, and now just to think of where we're coming, Shurura, that we're on a trajectory. We're
Yeah,
going somewhere. We might not be there
yeah,
just yet. And so,
yeah.
who is that person or a group of persons that you would say that these people are very close, or that person to that emancipated mind, Shurura?
Thank you, Marcia. For me, it will be the Black Panther movement. It
Mm.
is a movement that struck me as the most beautiful thing. It was you know to counter the Ku Klux Klan and the intimidation of the white supremacy, and how these kids were. Oh my, they were amazing. And I remember when I was young, I tried to find how I could join the Black Panther movement. Of course, to a white man, the Black Panther movement was like how you talk about the Mujahideen or something. But to me, these were the people who were out there to go for battle against bullying and intimidation. I loved them. They gave me the energy that I was looking for. Then Malcolm X. Malcolm X is a man who inspired me from as young as I was. I remember the first time I watched the movie Malcolm X by Denzel Washington. I started now getting a lot of inspiration. Then later I read his book. You know, what I've seen about Pan Africanists and people who talk about mental liberation, there's a weakness. We normally don't practice what we preach. And one of the few people who tried as much to do that was Malcolm X. Malcolm X practiced what he preached. He made sure, and that's why he had to break off with Muhammad. I mean, yeah, what was the guy's name? Elijah Muhammad, because he taught one thing and practiced the other. So Malcolm X was the other one. The last one would be the last two would be the African National Congress in South Africa when he was young back then. The leaders who were, if you read about South African history and what you see, there is colonialism, uh, uh, but there is vicious colonialism. The states that were colonized by the French and those that were colonized by the Dutch faced vicious colonialism. It was this kind of colonialism where they were almost, wiping out humanity. They came with their poverty and viciousness, and they wanted to make sure that it was them getting rich and enriching themselves at the expense of the others. And they made sure that if you stood in their way, you were wiped out. So the ANC stood and they fought till today. And if you look at South Africa compared to the rest of us, they have their languages, their names, their languages are their national languages. The rest of us, we speak the languages of the people who sold us into servitude. The last one will be a king from my homeland. It was called King Kabalega. King Kabalega was a very, very strong king. I have so many of them. I can mention them the whole night. But Kabalega fought the British with everything he had. He took the game to the British. Last one, please give me the last one. The last one was a queen, was a lady called Muhumuza. Muhumuza was a prophetess who started the culture of Nyabinji, which is in the Rastafari, where the what Rastafari believes, they believe in. Now, this lady, I'll send you a link and you read about her. This lady was amazing in the rural area. So this lady inspired the village people to rebel against British colonialism and the German colonialism, because Germans were in Tanzania and the British were in Uganda. So this woman fought against them. And the British and the Tanzanians, the Germans were saying, but who is this petty, poor woman? And the woman, told her people that, look, you can be inspired by a higher power, by your ancestors to fight these people. These people are weak. And the people rose up until the British, of course, arrested her and confined her until she was dead. Thank you.
I'm glad with that one about the woman. That's good. It's good to hear about that queen. And we're going to leave Miss Charles for the last. But so I'm going to go to Dr. Nathan. Who is that person that you say, oh, emancipated mind, or a group of persons? Who is that for you?
So if you look behind me, there's a picture of Barack Obama. And the reason I look up to him as a person who emancipated the image of, notwithstanding that he's of Kenyan descent. First, he's a contemporary figure, and he's a contemporary figure who beat them at their own game, right? He beat them at their own. And there's nothing as beautiful as seeing an oppressed person not just learn the rules or understand the political system, but also not just inspire an entire generation of people of color that you are more than what they tell you are, and go to school, get educated, learn the ropes, build popular support, beat them handily, not once, but twice at their own game. The other person, Mandela, for the same exact reason, that initially And I can see the room is full of very forceful Pan-Africans, which I celebrate, and I know that has a place. But Mandela moved forward from that. He was a revolutionary who at first took up the gun, and he ended up in on Robben Island. I have had the unique opportunity to visit Robben Island and see his cell. And one of the things that I observed is that he had the time to think really, really deeply and critically to what really needed to be done. And when he came out of there, he was unbeatable. He understood that he's not going to use the language of the oppressor. What we also need to understand that our culture as Africans, I know this is certainly the case of Kenyans, this is the case of Ugandans who are well represented in this forum. Our language was not one of necessarily of, we were a peaceful people. And while that makes us vulnerable to exploitation, it is our great strength, right? We are a peaceful people. We are people who believe in reason. We don't believe in exploiting our neighbors. I know I'm very close ethnically to my brothers from Uganda. I'm from Western Kenya. My father is from Western Kenya. And I wanted to just remind them that even during war, I know this is certainly the case in Uganda. I know it's the case in most ethnic groups in Kenya, who are not even allowed to shed blood. Is that true or false? It was taboo to shed your brother's blood. That is not a weakness. We had slavery, but it was taboo to oppress that person or to mistreat them. That is not a weakness. Nelson Mandela understood when he came out, he not just taught Africans who they are, but he imposed our will, our peaceful approach to relating to even the worst of our enemies. That is not a weakness. And this is why I look up to these two individuals, because they redefined what leadership meant. They redefined what being Black and what being African meant. And they demonstrated it on the world stage. This is why they are revered all over the world. So there's a place for war. There's a place for conflict if your freedoms are being compromised. But there's also a place for celebrating our culture as peaceful and civilized people. People talk about civilization, Western civilization being progressive. I think it was very progressive to take a whole population for 300 years, enslave them and act like brutes, like animals. I never want to, as an African, I never want to be associated with that way of thinking or that way of handling, not just our people, but even in response to an oppressor. That's what Mandela taught us. That the people that need to be liberated are not just those who are oppressed, but the oppressor as well. And by liberating not just the oppressed, but the oppressor, he demonstrated at the core who we are as Africans and as Black people.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And where the last comment is from the Queen among us, who they're asking me to bring you back already to make sure that they want to hear more from you. Eugenia Charles, can you who is that person or group of people for you?
For me, it will be my ancestors. First, I will have to start with Abdagaya Toyamantu, who's from the Dahomey Kingdoms, who she was the woman who helped delivered Jean-Jacques Dessalines. She trained him to become the warrior soldiers that he is. I will have to say Cecile Fatima and Duty Bookman for organizing the first political strategic meeting, that also known as Boakaima, to start the slave rebellions in Haiti. It will be Sanit Belair for her fairness, Marie-Jeanne for being the greatest spy ever during the Haitian revolutions, Toussaint Louverture for his diplomatic approach, Jean-Jacques Dessalines for being a straightforward genius in the battlefield, for bringing Haiti forward into freedom. I will say Benito Sylvain for helping to organize the Pan-African Conference in Ethiopia. Antenor Firmin for writing about the Black race. His book is still being used in every school in studying anthropology. And most recently, I will say Guadeloupean, Kalala Omutunde, a writer and Egyptologist who's taken his time. He passed away in 2022 to write about us as a people to bring forward the writing of the Egyptians and the importance that it has, and write books for children. I think the Maroons are
Yeah.
extremely important in bringing us to where we are today.
Yeah.
Without them, we could not have that fight. Yeah.
Oh man, this is awesome. We end up smiling, Dr.
Mm.
Nathan, when we see how far we've come. We're not where we're supposed to be, as Kimar said, and the others, but we're going somewhere. And my prayer is that we would be, all of us that's on tonight, those who are viewing, or our panel, that all of us together, that we will be continue to be inspired by by Nkrumah, Mandela, Marcus Garvey, Errol Barrow right here in Barbados, Nanny of the Maroons from Jamaica, Malcolm X, our ancestors in Haiti.
Master,
Repeat.
sorry.
Someone said.
Yes, I just wanted to make a quick comment. Because the last brother from Kenya spoke about Barack Obama, right? And it was very interesting to hear him speak about Barack Obama as an African, right? I don't share the same opinion as him on Barack Obama. I think Barack Obama was the first.
We're not going to go there
Like,
tonight. Okay, we're not going
no,
to go there tonight. That's another show. That's another show, Kimar. Right here, this is like the religion. This is another one. It's like the religion thing that we did tonight. We had to, eventually we're gonna go there. I promise you. We went to the religion tonight because we've always, this religion is always swimming around in these discussions, and we never touch it. Pigeon came on here and started this problem for us. And that's Pigeon
Sister
from
Marcia,
Kenya. But this
Sister Marcia.
Barack, we need to have a whole discussion on that. We probably should, especially in
Uh,
light of what's happening with Kamla and all of that. We probably should at some point. We'll discuss that, but we're
Sister
not going there.
uh,
We're not going there.
Marcia,
Okay? Yeah.
Marcia, there's something I wanted to ask my sister from Haiti when she was speaking. She talked about something to do with Wakaima, and I wanted to tell her that we have a tree here. It's a spiritual tree. People go there to worship, and you should Google it. It's called Wakaima. So when she mentioned it, it actually struck me that it might be related to that. I think the whole thing is connected to that. That's all I wanted to
Wow.
say.
Interesting.
Yes,
Very
indeed.
interesting.
Ours is the
We'll
Matthew.
exchange. I'll connect you guys because I would like to know about that. So let us, may
Mhm.
we continue to be inspired by all of our ancestors, who have gone before us, and who have, who have laid their lives down, who have suffered, who worked hard. So it gives us a platform that we can stand on. So we're not starting at the bottom, Miss Charles, but we have something to stand on. And tonight we wanna honor them, because through them we can continue our journey of this emancipation of our minds. Thanks to everybody who's joined tonight. And I know that some of those, some people were a little, the whole talk about the Christianity is a little tough for them, but it's a discussion, and so we're going to talk about everything. All right. So thank you all so very much for joining, to our panelists. Oh my God, it's a gift that you've given us, your time, your knowledge, your experience, your patience in listening, answering the questions. Thank you so very much for this gift that you've given to the Caribbean and to Africa. God bless you all. Love you all. See you all tomorrow night. Kimar doesn't have his show. I checked with him. And so we have to do something on this bail act, because we got to keep ourselves emancipated. All right, so see you all tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Okay, God bless you all. Bye bye. Love you. Bye bye.
Promise us a better tomorrow.